Hi, this is Russ, a former military investigator and private investigator. Used to manage offices out of Miami, New Orleans, and Washington, D.C. This I'm going to call a DNA blowout analysis and or double indemnity insurance. I'll try to, or I will tell it in a short story version. And it's interesting to me in respect. Somebody else might find it of interest, but we'll take it and use it in a paternity and or child support case that runs into criminal activity. The players in it will be Fred, Frieda, and Fred Jr. with background players Wolfie and Wolfie Jr. And the story goes that Frieda is the subject and or suspect. She targets Fred, who is the victim. The background player being Wolfie and Wolfie Jr. Wolfie Jr. being a DNA analysis expert at a lab. Frieda decides to get impregnated. She marries Fred, and she keeps all the rubber with the DNA samples in them, and they're taken to Wolfie Jr., who concocts them into a blood sample that's used on later purposes. In any event, Frieda becomes pregnant by actually Wolfie. The DNA samples are delivered prior to Fred's arrival for his part in this scenario, and the analysis indicates that the DNA sample is now Fred Jr., when in actuality it's actually Wolfie. Frieda eventually divorces Fred, who has a substantial middle-class income. Now Frieda collects child support and or alimony for the next 18 years to 21 years on Fred Jr., who in actuality is Wolfie Jr. In a sense. So now, as time passes, the alimony piles up and piles up. Fred eventually dies and has a large insurance policy which goes to Frieda because of Fred Jr., who is in actuality Wolfie or Wolfie Jr. Interesting. You can carry it to a lot of different scenarios, but consider it, and I'll talk at you later.